Hello grade 7, this is TV High. Welcoming you to Teleradyo Eskwela, tara na! We are glad to be with you in this new normal of schooling through radio broadcast. I am your Teleradyo host, Annalyn Arances from Tagum City National High School. How are you feeling now? I hope that things are well with you and the ones you love. At this time, I must ask you to stay in a comfortable, well-ventilated, and well-lit area where you can listen intently and take notes. Are you ready? That's great! Come and join us. Stay tuned and be one-of-a-kind Math Talino student. We would like to thank our radio partner, Hope Radio 107.1 DXHS, where we are airing our junior high school lessons. Thank you for your generosity. Our topic for today is expressing fraction to decimal and vice versa. This topic will be brought to us by our radio teacher, Miss Rodeline Y. Quamag from Tagum City National High School.
Hello dear students, I hope you're all safe while listening to our program. Now that you are settled in your homes, I want you to bring out with you your pen and your notebook and let us discuss Math 7, Quarter 1, Module 4, Lesson 2. And let us discuss fractions to decimals and vice versa. Now let us hear our objective for the day. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to express fractions to decimals and vice versa. Before we start with our lesson for the day, let us hear our objective. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to express fractions to decimals and vice versa. Now, why change fraction to a decimal or vice versa? Both fractions and decimals are used to describe pieces of a larger whole. The concept of a fraction is more fundamental. When there isn't a whole, fractions and decimals play a very important role in our lives. We couldn't have half or any other value that wasn't an integer if there were no fractions. We could state, for example, there are X number of cakes where X is an integer. However, once we cut it and open to consume it, we can say how much we have because fractions are required. Let's say 1/3 of the cakes are being consumed, while 2/3 remain. For the most part, decimals have a lot of advantages. Their relative sizes are obvious. It's a lot easier to notice that 0.75 is larger than 0.65 than to realize that 3/4 is larger than 13/20. We use decimals every day while we are dealing with money, while we are dealing with length, weight, and many others. Decimal numbers are used in situations where more precision is required than the whole numbers can provide. Now, before we start with our lesson, I have questions to ask. Are you ready? Then let's start with question number 1. Which is not equal to 3/5? Letter A, 30/50. Letter B, 9/15. Letter C, 15/25. And letter D, 8/10. The correct answer is letter D. It's 8/10. Let's proceed to question number 2. 11/8 can be expressed as letter A, 1.375, letter B, 13.75, letter C, 137.5, and letter D, 1,375. The correct answer is letter A. It's 1.375. The last question. The decimal 0.23 or 23/100 is equal to letter A, 23/10, letter B, 23/100, letter C, 23/5, and letter D, 23/1000. The correct answer is letter B. It's 23 over 100. Now let's proceed with our lesson right away. Any rational number can be expressed from fractional form to decimal form, and vice versa. Let us start with converting fractions to decimals. In expressing fraction to decimal, simply remember this. Divide the numerator by the denominator. Let's have example number 1. How shall we change 3/4 to decimal? Simply divide 3 by 4. And the answer would be 0.75. Now remember, 0.75 is terminating decimal. Let's proceed to example number 2. How shall we change negative 35 over 50 to decimal? Or what is the decimal form of negative 35 over 50? The rule says, simply divide the numerator by, yes, the denominator. So therefore, it's negative 35 divided by 50. The answer is negative 0.7. And negative 0.7 is a terminating decimal. Remember, terminating decimal is a decimal with finite number of digits. Now let's proceed to example number 3. How shall we change 2/3 to decimal? Again, the rule says divide 2 by 3. And the answer would be 0.666 and so on. Now 0.666 and so on is non-terminating and it is repeating decimal. This can also be expressed as 0.6 and above 6 there's a bar. And that bar is called vinculum, which means that 6 repeats indefinitely or it will not end. Now let's proceed to example number 4. Change 25 over 99 to decimal. So we divide 25 by 99 and the answer would be 0.2525 and so on. 0.2525 and so on is non-terminating yet repeating decimal. It can also be expressed as 0.25 and above 2 and 5 there's a bar, which means 2 and 5 repeats indefinitely. Non-terminating decimal is a decimal that continues indefinitely. Remember that. Now, do you understand already how to convert fractions to decimals? Let us do the reverse. This time, we will convert decimals back to fractions. Okay, now let's start with example number 1. Convert 0.3 to fraction. Steps to follow. Step A. Let n your given decimal number. So n equals 0.3 or 3/10. Step B. Multiply the equation by a power of 10 depending on the place value of the given decimal. So in this case, we have 3/10. Therefore, we multiply both sides of the equation by 10. So 10 times n equals 0.3 times 10. Step C. Find the value of n. So, dividing both sides by 10, you have n equals 3 over 10. The final answer therefore is 3 over 10. And that is the fraction form of 0.3. Now let's proceed to example number 2. Convert negative 0.68 to a fraction or convert negative 68/100ths to a fraction. Step A. Let n your given decimal number. So therefore, we have n equals negative 0.68. Step B. Multiply the equation by a power of 10 depending on the place value of the given decimal. Now remember, our given is 68/100ths. So therefore, we multiply both sides of the equation by 100. So we have 100 times n equals negative 0.68 times 100. Step C, find the value of n. After you divide both sides by 100, then there you have negative 68 over 100, or reduce to lowest term, there you can have negative 17 over 25. So therefore, negative 0.68 in fraction form is negative 17 over 25. Don't forget to reduce your answer to its lowest term. Now let's proceed to this example. Convert 0.333 and so on to a fraction. Now take note of the given. We have to change a repeating decimal to fraction. How shall we do that? Of course, we have steps to follow. Step A, let n be your given decimal number. So that becomes n equals 0.33 and so on. Step B, multiply the equation by a power of 10 depending on the place value of the given decimal. Now in this case, there's only one number that repeats, and that's 3. So therefore, we multiply both sides of the equation by 10. So that becomes 10 times n equals 0.33 and so on times 10. Simplifying further, then you have 10n equals 3.333 and so on. Now we are ready for the next step. Let's proceed to step C. Subtract the first equation to the new equation to obtain a whole number as difference. That becomes 10n equals 3.333 minus n equals 0.333 and so on. So 10n minus n, that gives you 9n. And 3.333 and so on minus 0.33 and so on gives you 3. What's next? Find the value of n by applying the multiplication property of equality. So therefore, n equals 3 over 9. Then step E, finalize your answer. Reduce to lowest term if you can. So n equals 3 over 9 is finally 1/3. So 0.333 and so on is equal to 1/3. Now let's proceed to this kind of example. It says convert 0.767676 and so on to fraction. Now take note of this given. There are 2 digits that repeat. Now how shall we change this to fraction? Of course, let's follow the steps. Step A, let n be your given decimal number. So you write n equals 0.767676 and so on. Step B, multiply the equation by a power of 10 depending on the place value of the given decimal. So in this case, there are 2 numbers that repeat. So we multiply both sides of the equation by 100. So 100 times n equals 0.767676 and so on times 100. Simplifying further, you will have 100n equals 76.767676 and so on. With this, we are ready to perform step C, which says subtract the first equation to the new equation to obtain a whole number as difference. So 100n equals 76.767676 and so on minus n equals 0.767676 and so on. Now, what is 100n minus n? It is, yes, 99n. And what is 76.767676 and so on minus 0.767676 and so on? Yes, that is a whole number 76. So we have 99n equals 76. And we are now ready to perform step D. Find the value of n by applying the multiplication property of equality. So n equals 76 over 99. Now step E says finalize your answer. Can we reduce to lowest term 76 over 99? Not anymore. If it cannot be reduced anymore to its lowest term, then that is your final answer. So, 0.76, 76, 76, and so on is equal to 76 over 99 in fraction form. Now, let's practice. Let's have question number 1. Convert 15 over 20 to decimal. Again, convert 15 over 20 to decimal. The correct answer is 0.75. Now, let's proceed to question number 2. Convert 5/3 to decimal. Again, convert 5/3 or 5 over 3 to decimal. The correct answer is 1.67. Let's move on to question number 3. Convert 0.76 to fraction. Again, convert 0.76 to fraction. The correct answer is 76 over 100, or when reduced to lowest term, that's 19 over 25. Let's proceed to question number 4. Convert 0.666 and so on to fraction. Again, convert 0.666 and so on to fraction. The correct answer is 6 over 9 or 2/3. Now, let us try to remember very important things in this lesson. First, in changing fraction to decimal, you have to remember to simply divide the numerator by the denominator. Now, in changing decimal to fraction, if you change a terminating decimal to fraction, the steps are the following. A, let n be your given decimal number. B, multiply the given equation by a power of 10 depending on the place value of the given decimal. And C, find the value of n. Now, what if you are to change a repeating decimal to fraction? Here are the steps. Step A, let n be your given decimal number. Step B, multiply the equation by a power of 10 depending on the place value of the given decimal. Step C, subtract the first equation to the new equation to obtain a whole number as difference. And step D, find the value of n by applying the multiplication property of equality. And lastly, finalize your answer. And that wraps up our session for today, dear learners. Please get your quiz paper ready with you. Do not forget to write your name on your paper. And then, I will read the question twice and you will write the answer on your paper. Are you ready? Then let's start with question number 1. Which of the following is terminating decimal? I repeat, which of the following is terminating decimal? Letter A, 0.75. Letter B, 0.444 and so on. Letter C, 1.7465 and so on. Letter D, 5.678309 and so on. The correct answer is letter A. 0.75 is a terminating decimal. Now let's proceed to question number 2. Which of the following is equivalent to 2/5? Again, which of the following is equivalent to 2/5 or 2 over 5? Letter A, 0.20. Letter B, 0.30. And letter C, 0.40. The correct answer is letter C. That's 0.40. Question number 3. Which of the following is equivalent to 0.75? I repeat, which of the following is equivalent to 0.75? Letter A, 1/2. Letter B, 2/5. Letter C, 3/4. And letter D, 1/3. The correct answer is letter C, 3/4. Question number 4. It is a decimal with finite number digits. Again, it is a decimal with finite number digits. A, improper decimal. B, proper decimal. C, non-terminating decimal. And letter D, terminating decimal. The correct answer is letter D. It's terminating decimal. Now, let's proceed to the last question. Question number 5. Which of the following is repeating and non-terminating decimal? Again, which of the following is repeating and non-terminating decimal? Letter A, 3.444 and so on. Letter B, 11.34567 and so on. Letter C, 0.27865244576 and so on. And letter D, 0.567. The correct answer is letter A. That's 3.444 and so on. Now, this is for your assignment. Kindly answer "Let us enhance" of page 12 of your Math 7 Module, Quarter 1, Module 4, Lesson 2. And that ends our lesson for today. Keep safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Teacher Rods. That ends our lesson for today. For you to understand the topic further, you may do the exercises provided in your module. Or you may also have an advanced study for you to prepare yourself for the next lesson. Remember that the key to mastering mathematics is constant and diligent practice. Please make sure to be with us next session only here at TV High. This has been your host, Annalyn Aranzas from Tagum City National High School. Keep safe, everyone!
Na na